Some stories sound too elaborate to be true until the person telling them can't stop shaking. Tonight's story isn't about ghosts or demons or cursed objects. It's about something worse, a man who offered the truth itself for a price. The man you're about to hear from never believed in the supernatural. He believed in love, in logic, in medicine. And yet, one question changed everything. This is his confession. Stranger Tom. I used to think that horror stories belonged on the internet, in podcasts, on forums, buried in old threads people read for fun. But after what I saw, I don't read them anymore. Because now I know some of them are real. It started the year my wife Sammy got sick. She was 33, full of energy, the kind of person who laughed so hard she cried. And then, one day, she stopped laughing. The doctors said it was an aggressive illness, something they'd caught late. I still remember the sterile smell of the hospital, that faint mix of metal alcohol, wipes, and hopelessness. I remember the taste of the coffee there, always lukewarm and bitter. And I remember the day the insurance company told me they'd cover less than half her treatment. We had been doing well before all that. 2 full-time jobs, no kids, plans to travel. By the time she got sick, we were living off my single paycheck and hope. But Sammy was tough. She smiled through it. Even when she started losing her hair, she'd joke about finally knowing what I'd look like bald. I did my best to stay strong, but each hospital visit chipped away at both of us. There were good days, bad days, and then the days that blurred into one another, the quiet ones when neither of us had the strength to talk. After nearly a year of treatment, we both knew the truth. The catastrophic had become the routine. We stopped saying next time. One day, while she was sitting by the window, she told me, "You should go out this weekend. Barry's having that bachelor party, right?" I told her I couldn't leave her. She smiled, thin and pale, but real. "You need to be normal for a night. Go, have a drink. I'll be fine." It was the first time I'd seen her eyes light up in weeks, so I said yes. Barry was a work friend, not someone I was close to. But when you're in your 30s, friends are hard to come by. He'd invited half the office to celebrate in Annapolis, and I decided to be the designated driver. One night, that was all. I promised Sammy I'd be back by morning. It was November 12th, cold enough that the breath fogged from our mouths as we boarded the party bus. We checked into the Hilton off West Street, then hit the casino. There were drinks, laughter, and noise. So much noise. I remember losing $200 at roulette, then winning $600 at blackjack. It felt good to win something for once, even if it was meaningless. I called Sammy between drinks. She laughed when she heard me slurring. "You're a fun drunk," she said. "Have fun for both of us." The night blurred after that. Music lights, people shouting each other's names. We wandered between bars, chased tacos from a food truck, ended up back at the hotel suite that Jake Barry's best man had rented. Jake had gone overboard. 12 of us packed into a room meant for half that number. There was more booze, loud music, and inevitably a pair of dancers who arrived around 2 a.m. I stayed on the couch with a cigar and a whiskey, trying not to think about hospitals or chemo. For a few minutes, I managed to forget. When the music finally died, it was almost 3 in the morning. There were only 4 of us left, me, Barry, Jake, and a guy named Ramsey. We were drunk, exhausted, telling stories about our wives and kids. Then the door opened. No one had knocked. A tall man stepped inside, ducking slightly under the frame. He must have been 6'7", thin as a pole, dressed in black, with a white shirt. His hair was white, not grey, white slicked back neatly, and his eyes were the kind of blue that felt wrong to look at for too long. He smiled like he already knew us. "I see you gentlemen are enjoying yourselves," he said. His voice was calm, low confident. "I'm guessing the girls didn't disappoint?" Jake laughed. "You could say that. Oh, I can tell." The stranger smiled wider. "If it weren't for the cigars, all I'd smell in here is virtue." We laughed because that's what drunk people do when they don't understand why they're uncomfortable. Jake called him Stranger Tom. Apparently, someone had seen him around town before a guy who knew how to make any night memorable. Tom sat down like he owned the room. He started talking about his clubs, his movie business, his connections. The kind of man who always has a story, but none you can verify. Eventually, the conversation drifted toward our lives. Barry confessed he was nervous about marriage. Jake worried about his kids' college bills. Ramsey talked about his old dog who was dying. I stayed quiet. I didn't want to think about Sammy. Then Tom reached into his coat and pulled out a silver lighter. It was beautifully carved a crow on one side, 2 sunflowers on the other. He flicked it open, and a small blue flame burned steady at the tip. It didn't flicker. "Let's imagine," he said, "that you could get an answer to anything that keeps you up at night. What would you ask?" We chuckled. Jake said it sounded like a Ouija board for adults. Tom's eyes didn't move from the flame. "It's not a game," he said softly. "You get your answer. You just have to pay the price." I wanted to laugh it off, but something about that flame made my stomach twist. He turned to me. "You husband, surely you want to know something." I stared into the blue. "Fine," I said. "Tell me the color of the boxers I wore at my wedding." Tom smiled like he'd been waiting for me to say that. "Fair enough," he said. "Look into the flame, and when I ask, say yes." We all leaned forward, the room silent, except for the hum of the air conditioner. The blue light reflected in everyone's eyes. "Do you submit?" he asked. We said yes, and then everything broke. The sound hit first, a sharp, wet crack, like a row of sticks snapping. Jake screamed. His arm bent the wrong way, bone tearing through skin. Ramsey's jaw twisted sideways, teeth rolling across the carpet. Barry fell off the couch, his legs splitting from hip to ankle, like fabric tearing. Blood pooled around his shoe. I felt only a sting on my index finger. No one moved. The room pulsed with the smell of iron and smoke. Then the pain hit them all at once, and their screams overlapped into something animal. Through it all, Tom smiled, holding the blue flame steady. He looked at me and said, "They were red, with little white petals." Then he closed the lighter, and the world went dark. When I woke up, there were sirens, EMTs shouting, flashing lights. Jake was being lifted onto a stretcher. Barry was covered in blood, and Ramsey was gone. My hands were shaking. I looked down, only a bruise on my finger. They called it a freak accident. I didn't argue. I went home that morning. Sammy ran to the door when she saw me. She nearly fell trying to hug me. "Thank God you're okay," she cried. They said there was an accident. I told her I'd passed out from drinking too much. She didn't need the truth. Weeks passed. Barry survived after multiple surgeries. Jake lost part of his arm. Ramsey had his jaw wired shut. No one talked about Tom. It was easier that way. But at night, when I closed my eyes, I saw that blue flame. I'd feel the bruise on my finger throb, and sometimes in the dark, I swore I could smell burnt tobacco. Then Sammy got worse. The treatment stopped working. Her parents came every day to help. I was running out of time again. And then the thought came. Tom. I told myself it was insane, but desperation doesn't care about reason. I spent weeks hunting for him, calling bars, emailing strangers, following rumors. Everyone I talked to said the same thing. You don't find him. He finds you. Then one night, I got a text from an unknown number. A photo of a silver lighter. Below it, a message. Still want to know I sent every dollar I had to the contact who arranged it. They said he'd be at a private party in Ferndale. It was a Friday night. The place was loud red lights pulsing through the haze. The music shook the floor, but I could barely hear it over my own heartbeat. I spotted him at the bar, sipping whiskey, as calm as ever. I knew you'd be back, he said, sliding a glass toward me. You have questions. Just one, I said. How can I save my wife? He studied me, his smile faint but cruel. That's a big question, he said. A real big question. He turned away to pour another drink. You'll have to wait your turn. A group of drunk men gathered around. They'd heard of him too, apparently. Tom began his speech again. Same words, same rhythm. Ask a question, any question. I'll give you your answer. The price depends on how badly you want to know. The men laughed. One asked who stole his truck. Another asked for the serial number of a part for his fridge. Tom humored them all, the lighter glowing faintly in his hand. Then one man, drunker than the rest, shouted, I want to know what God looks like. The laughter died. Tom's smile widened. That's a big one, he said softly. I wanted to stop them, to scream. But before I could move, Tom flicked the lighter open. The blue flame returned steady and bright. Do you submit? He asked. They said yes. I closed my eyes. The screams started almost instantly. The man who asked about God began convulsing. His body twisted, bones cracking like glass under pressure. He didn't die, he changed. His skin stretched, his mouth opening far too wide as he whispered in a language none of us understood. Another man's legs burst like popcorn. Another's ribs folded inward. They didn't sound like people anymore. Tom stood among them, face lit by the blue glow eyes, burning with something inhuman. He looked at me and said, You wanted to save a life? That costs more than knowing what God looks like. I could barely breathe. Can you do it? I asked. Can you save her? He smiled. Oh, I can. But you're not going to like the price. The lighter's flame flared, blinding. I saw flashes, a beach of black sand, white feathers falling from a crimson sky, an endless ocean that didn't move, and an eye enormous red, watching everything. Then I understood. Sammy was going to live. She would recover on her own. She never needed saving. Tom's grin faded. You're not going to pay, are you? No, I said. She'll be fine. He looked furious, truly furious. You were supposed to be mine, he hissed. I was waiting for this one. He grabbed me by the throat, eyes flickering with blue fire. Then came the explosion. They said later a fire broke out from faulty wiring. That I was lucky to survive. They said the others died instantly. But I know better. When they pulled me out, I remember looking up through the smoke. And above the fire, through the ceiling, I saw it again. That red eye staring down from the sky. Months passed. Sammy recovered. The doctors called it a miracle. Her hair grew back, her color returned. And one morning she said, Come on, lazy bones. We've got ducks to feed. I smiled, pretending I was fine. But some nights, I still wake up gasping the smell of smoke in my nose. Sometimes I dream of the silver lighter. Sometimes I dream of Tom sitting at the edge of my bed, waiting. He's still out there, somewhere in the dark corners of clubs and hotel rooms, listening for the right kind of question, waiting for someone desperate enough to ask. So if a man with white hair and a silver lighter ever offers you answers, don't look into the flame, don't say yes, and never ever talk to strangers. Some people say knowledge is power, but the truth is, knowledge is hunger, and something out there is always waiting to feed on it. If a stranger ever offers you answers under a blue flame, remember this story. Don't look into the light. Don't ask the question, because sometimes the answer costs more than your life. Thank you for listening to NightLore. If this story kept you awake tonight, leave a like, share it with someone who loves the dark, and subscribe for more true-style horror every week. Sleep well, if you can.